Okay, so this is video number 2 for metalsmithing. This is all about the workbench and using the torch, lighting it, and preparing metal for any work with the torch. This is your workbench area. This is the place and the only place you want to be using any heating devices, which primarily is using the acetylene tank, which you see here, and the torch. Anytime you're at this table, you want to make sure you have your safety goggles on, and you want to make sure any loose clothing, necklaces, jewelry, long hair, anything like that is pulled back out of the way or removed. So what we have here are, let's start with the torch. We've got our acetylene tank, which is an acetylene gas. You'll see that if you look closely at the handle, you've got your open and closed directions here. So when you go to open this tank, you just turn it maybe 1 or 2 turns to open the tank. And then the line leads to our torch, and this also has a valve here that you can open and close. This valve should remain closed until you're ready to actually use the torch. It is very sensitive, so when you do open it, it doesn't take much to change the amount of gas that comes out. So that is turned off right now. What you also have are some equipment for using the heat, so keeping it off the surface of the table. We've got the tripod here, and then we've got some of these spinning trays, which we'll use later. You've also got some flux. The flux brush is here, and the flux itself is here. Flux is used anytime you bring the metal under heat. We use the flux to minimize fire scale, which is an oxidation layer that looks black that coats the metal after you fire. Flux helps keep it cleaner and helps that oxidation just peel right off. You also want to use flux anytime you have solder, because flux allows the solder to flow. So always flux. When all else fails, if you're not sure, flux it. We also have quench, which is just water. Anytime this appears to be sort of murky or mucky or getting low, you can always refill this. And this contraption here is pickling acid. This is an acid. It is sodium bisulfate. It is used to remove an oxide layer, that fire scale, from your metal after torching it. And it will eat holes in your clothing. This is not the kind of acid that if it touches your hands is going to burn your skin off. However, you do want to wash your hands anytime you make contact with the pickling acid, and you also want to make sure you wash your hands just anytime after you're at the workbench. It will not eat your clothes away immediately either. It's sort of a slow progression over time. So if you do get any on your clothes, make sure you rinse it thoroughly in the sink or clean off your clothing. Also, anything retrieved from here, so you'll be able to pick up the basket and pull things out from here. You can see there's a little metal piece in there now. When you place it back in, just don't push it, just let it sort of fall on its own, otherwise it may overflow. But whenever you do retrieve anything out of here, you're going to use the copper tongs, which are located at the front of the table next to the flint starter. And you want to use these copper tongs because if you don't, the particles of copper that are sort of floating in here, if you put steel or another metal in here, it will sort of send a message to them to plate onto any metal that's in there. So if you have a piece of nickel or a piece of brass in here, it will be copper plated if you use anything other than the copper tongs. Please do not use steel or anything else into the pickling acid. Always use the copper tongs. And then when you're done with them, make sure they hang back in their proper spot right here. So that is your introduction to the things on the workbench that you'll be starting out with using the torch.